Hi everyone, welcome to this week's installment of Excellence in Utilities. Something that we know is that the people within your organization are excellent. But for your organization as a whole to be excellent, what we need to do is ensure that we're sharing the love so that the excellence is spread between the people in your organization. And that's really what I'm going to be talking about today, how you can codify the excellence that you can uncover so you as an organization can win. To do that, let's tell a bit of a story. So we are perhaps a water organization, and like most water organizations, we're doing a lot of capital investment. So what's happened is I am one of 3 new project managers who have been starting as project managing our capital investments. We've all been taught this is how we run a capital investment project in this organization. But as an organization, we value the search for excellence. So take the starting process, but go off and try and find, are there better ways of working? So again, I'm one of the new starters, and then to my left is Juliet, and to my right is John. And as a bit of time passes, what happens is Juliet and I, we just step back a little bit, we observe, we just run the process that we were taught. But John, he does go and experiment, and he finds a new and improved way of working. A bit more time passes. John takes his new way of working and he iterates on that a bit more. I slightly tweak the way that I was taught initially, and Juliet, she goes on her own hunt for excellence and finds her own way of working. Again, as an organization, we've got more and more projects hitting our desks, so we need new starters. All 3 of us are paired up with a fresh project manager, and we teach them this is the way that we run a project. But of course, the way that we teach them is the way that we individually run a project. So we've taught our 3 new starters 3 different ways of working. But again, we reiterate the message in this organization. We value the search for excellence. So take what I've taught you and go forth, go and see if there's a better way. And that's what we all do. A bit more time passes, and now there are 6 project managers, and all 6 of us are managing our projects in 6 different ways. One thing that we know, though, is, of course, there can't be 6 best ways to run a project. So what might have happened is over time, John has uncovered the most excellent way to run a project. But right now, that is individual excellence because he's the only person running projects in that way. All of us are doing it slightly differently. Now, you might notice that I've been a bit stuck in my ways. I've only slightly tweaked the way that I run projects than what I was taught all those years ago. And while that way of working was fine when I was onboarded 3 or 4 years ago, today it's fundamentally not fit for purpose. And Juliet, bless her, she did go on her hunt for excellence and she has found a different way of working, but unfortunately she's just gone off in the completely wrong direction and her process is just fundamentally not fit for purpose. And that's really the problem when we all go on our individual hunts for excellence. Some of the processes are going to be that, they are going to be excellent, but other processes are not going to be fit for purpose and other processes are going to be somewhere in between. Many of you would be familiar with the SA Partners Improvement Journey. Fundamentally, it's a maturity model that is broken down into 3 different phases. The first phase being reactive, where there aren't standards, everybody does work differently, and therefore the quality of outputs that everybody does is slightly different as well. The proactive phase does see standardization where everybody's working in the same way and we're starting to produce outputs that are fit for purpose. And then finally, when we get to excellence, we're not only meeting customer expectations, but we're doing so in a way that's lean, that's mean, that's efficient, and often leverages technology. Now, so long as we are constantly changing the way that we work, seeking excellence individually without standardizing the excellence that we find, essentially what you're doing is you're creating a situation where you'll never leave the reactive zone. Because what will happen is individuals will find excellence, but they'll become silos. These people will be overachieving, while other people in the team who do the same job will be simply meeting customer expectations at best, while many miss altogether. So again, if you improve without standardization, you are forever going to be reactive. So what's the solution? Fundamentally, it's using process management to codify the excellence that you uncover. So before we go on the hunt for any kind of excellence, before we start thinking about what is a better way of working, what we're going to do is define a standard. everybody's going to follow this standard. And this standard is going to become our baseline for improvement. We're going to do just that. We're going to go look for excellence. We're going to improve our processes. This might be using PDCA, might be using DMAIC, whatever methodology you use. You're going to find a better way of working. Once you've found that better way of working, before we start thinking about further improving it, what we're going to do is codify it. We're going to codify and standardize that better way of working, get everybody doing work in the same way. And that will now become our new performance baseline from which to run further improvement cycles. And that's really the key to all of this. You need to codify your excellence. So long as best practices, best ways of working lives within the heads of individuals, that excellence is going to stay within that individual. What we need to be doing is sharing the best practices across the organization, across the team, so that we're sharing the love, and as an organization, we become excellent. And this is really all about good process management. Good process management is clear, it's concise, but it's also detailed so that when we have a best practice way of working, everybody within the team and the business unit can follow that best practice. So let's go back to our little simulation here. Myself, John, and Juliet. This time we're taught this is the one way of working, but please do go experiment, go and find excellence. And we do just that. Again, we've experimented. John has found a way of working, and we come to realize that actually John's way of working is the most excellent. Before we do anything else, what we're going to do is we're going to codify it. We're going to codify the excellence that John has found. This means creating standard processes, and now we are all going to cluster around that new best practice. We're all going to start doing our job in the best practice that John uncovered. That then becomes our baseline for further improvement. So all of us start experimenting. We look for more excellence from John's best practice. And in doing this, we find a new best practice. Again, before we do anything further, we codify it, we document the standard, and then we stabilize around that new standard. So to summarize, your job, as everybody's job, is to work the work. In this case, as a project manager, I'm not responsible for just managing projects. I'm also responsible for identifying better ways to run projects. But what we then need to do is codify the excellence, codify the best practices that we find, standardize them. And if we do that right, what you'll find is that excellence will become exponential. Because what will happen is I will find a new best practice way of working, but then my colleague to my right, she's going to take that best practice and make it even better. So thank you all for your time today. Join us next week for our next installment, which will be with Megan James. Also, as a reminder, we are running a benchmarking study for excellence in utilities. Please register your interest if you'd like to participate. There is a QR code which you can scan, give your details, and we'll be in touch. But for now, thank you all for your time. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.